Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Jerry, and your 112 dear friends who are joining today. It's an enormous pleasure to have this moment, even if pandemically rendered virtual, to celebrate you and the astonishing record of things you've done, friendships you've maintained, mentoring, to which I can also testify, having gained so much from you over now, what is it, half a century? It's really a great day. I know for me, from the first time that we met in 1973, over the following years, from being 18 years old and learning about the field through your work and through your advice and guidance and teaching, and having you as such a wonderful friend and colleague over all these years. I think that's true for many of us spread around the world and joining today.
My little one on because it's out of phase.
If everybody could mute their screens, that would be great. I think there is one feature that perhaps Jerry might like through his admiration of Einstein's quest for unity, and that is there is a great unity to Jerry Holton's many, many activities across the cultural spectrum. Jerry has seen and contributed to some of the great advances in our thinking about the development of science over all these years, to the place of science in a broader culture, to an appreciation and teaching of physics. And I think that all of these, in a way, do have a common thread. And that is that Jerry was also witness to some of the worst events in history. He saw the Nazi incursion into and Anschluss of Austria. He was somebody who's then came to the United States and witnessed the construction and expansion of democratic ideals in the United States after World War II. His ideas about the importance of science, his ideas about the way physics could be taught and understood and bring people, students in from all different backgrounds into an appreciation for science in its development, in its logical and experimental aspects, and in its historical dimensionality. All of these things have been commitments that Jerry has had over the years. His essays, I think, are not only contributions to the understanding of the history of science, but they are beautiful essays. They are contributions in and of themselves to the culture that we have of grasping the wide range of ways in which science, in particular physics, his great love, have advanced our understanding of the world around us. We are so many, and I wish I could have all of you present, but that would be too much for this particular occasion, although I hope you'll all communicate with Jerry directly your celebration. What I wanted to do was to play a compilation of the thoughts and homage and affection of 10 of his dear friends and colleagues.
Jerry, it is so wonderful to see you today. I have been a long time admirer of your work, beginning when I read Thematic Origins of Scientific Thought as a physics student. And your book gave me a new way to think about ideas in physics that I had simply never heard of before. And later, your work with Gerhard Sonnert on women in science brought some important insights on the problems of the underrepresentation of women in science, which I have found to be incredibly valuable in my own work on this topic. And I am personally grateful for your numerous contributions to our field, which have simply been breathtaking. So we here in the department are so pleased to celebrate your birthday today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hello. I'm so glad to have this chance to wish happy birthday to my dear friend and mentor, Jerry Holton. I'm not sure, but I think I first met Jerry soon after I came to Cambridge from Berkeley. I was at that, this is before I ever joined the faculty at Harvard. At this time, I was working on my first book on gravitation and cosmology, and I wanted to have a historical introduction in which I would describe the precursors of general relativity, the theory of non-Euclidean spaces, theory of gravity, special relativity. And I was advised to seek the wisdom of Gerry Holton, and it was wonderful. I mean, he was filled with information. I picked his brain unmercifully and put much of what I learned into the book. But it wasn't just that Gerry knew a lot. As I got to know Gerry, he seemed to me a model of the physicist historian, the physicist who had been an accomplished working physicist and then turned most of his attention to the history of the great predecessors of our field. And he filled me with an enthusiasm for the history of physics and astronomy that has kept with me ever since and appears here and there in everything I write. It was not, and it wasn't just that there was a lot of information and enthusiasm for history. Gerry's 1952 book, Concepts and Theories of Physical Science, I hope I have the title remembered correctly, provided a model for how you can use history to get people interested in physics, people who are not necessarily planning to become physicists themselves. But since everyone loves a good story, telling the story of the history of our field provides an incentive to learn about the basic ideas of physics. But my interaction with Gerry goes beyond these professional matters. My wife, Louise, and I came to know Gerry and Nina Holton and loved them. They stayed with us at our house in Austin a few years after we moved to Austin. Louise remembers going to a lecture by Gerry Holton, I think it was on the Millikan oil drop experiment, in which she got from Gerry a sense of the way that experimental physics is always done in a matrix of theory. And we've kept up with them over the years. I remember I visited Cambridge after moving to Austin all by myself, and Gerry and Nina took me out to dinner at an Ethiopian restaurant in Cambridge. Who knew that there were Ethiopian restaurants? It's the only Ethiopian meal I've ever had. I don't remember, as I said, the first time I met Gerry, but I do remember the last time that Louise and I saw Gerry and Nina. We were revisiting once again Provincetown, a town in the tip of Cape Cod that we had liked very much in the past. And we had the bright idea, remembering that Gerry and Nina had us to their house in Wellfleet. We invited them to come up from Wellfleet to have dinner with us in Provincetown, along with another couple who also had a house in Wellfleet, Mickey and Phyllis Keller. We had a wonderful evening sitting around the dinner table, sharing ideas about politics and food and Cambridge gossip, the best kind of warm, friendly evening. I'll never forget it. Louise and I miss Gerry and Nina Holton so much and hope that when this crazy pandemic business is over, we'll have a chance once again to see them. In the meantime, happy birthday, Gerry, and many more happy birthdays.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dear
Yes.
Gerry, warmest greetings from Berlin, the city of your birth, and still the antipode of Vienna, city of your childhood, as it was when you knew them. Berlin's Bauhaus to Vienna's Baroque, Berlin's self-importance to Vienna's irony, Berlin's Bratwurst to Vienna's Schlagobers. Both of these cities and the learning and culture they once represented were first made vivid to me through your teaching. This was not because you deliberately evoked the power of place. Even in your wonderfully titled article, From the Vienna Circle to Harvard Square, you gave us a drama that was all about ideas, not what it meant to switch locales from the Arkaden Cafe to the Harvard Faculty Club, although that must have been quite a jolt. These were the ideas of Mach, Einstein, Bohr, Carnap, Frank, the galaxy of other luminaries. More than that, you made them into a genuine drama with the suspense and intensity and unity of action that any theatrical performance might envy. Unity really is le mot juste here. Although as a clueless freshman, haphazardly educated at a large American public high school, I'd barely heard of most of the names of the dramatis personae who appeared in your lectures and articles. I could nonetheless sense that they inhabited a very different intellectual world than mine. And I can still recall, at a distance of some 50 years, hearing you lecture on Einstein's path to special relativity as a guest lecturer in Nat Sci 9, then taught by Owen Gingerich. Rereading your articles all these years later, I still thrill to the drama of the hidden connections among ideas that you revealed. And I still admire the lucid, elegant prose that straightened out even the most complicated argument. But in those days, I didn't know the half of it, more precisely, the better half of it. The unforgettable, the inimitable, the one and only Nina, a woman as wickedly funny as she is elegant. In fact, she's the only person I have ever known who could be elegant in a canoe. Her sculptures, my favorites are the intergalactic rovers, which are all pipes and wheels, are as full of wit as their creator. Your dinner parties were legendary gatherings of the great and the good. But if any of the grandees took to being too grand at table, Nina could be counted upon to rescue the rest of us with a perfectly timed, perfectly aimed non sequitur, restoring ease and jollity all around. And I've always wondered, wherever did such a well brought up Austrian girl learn all those naughty songs she sang with such gusto at more informal gatherings? I count it as my great good fortune to have had you as my teacher and my friend. It was taking a course with you my junior year in college that persuaded me to learn German. And boy, did that turn out to be useful later on. You opened up new worlds to me. More than that, you taught me to see that they were genuine worlds with their own wholeness and their own integrity. There's a line in one of your articles, I think it's the one in which you reminisce about your days as a youthful secretary to the Institute for the Unity of Sciences. And you talk about the unlimited curiosity and generosity of spirit that animated that enterprise. Of course, you were describing others, but it strikes me also as a self-portrait, as true of Jerry at 99 as it was of the youthful Jerry at circa 23. Happy, happy birthday, dear Jerry, and congratulations on 99 years, well worth celebrating.
Dear Jerry, when I arrived as a freshman in 1964, you were already an icon in physics education. When I returned in 1971 after a 4-year self-imposed exile in New Haven, you were a distinguished senior colleague. I think that for some reason, you felt that the brash young nerd that I was in those days was worth your efforts to civilize. My wife, Anne, and I came to cherish the friendship of you and your wonderful wife, Nina. I hope that you feel that the effort was worth it. Thank you, Jerry, for many years of friendship, wise advice, and polite, if sometimes pointed, reminders. Thank you for many years of reminding me that history matters. Thank you for many years of reminding me that stories are important. Thank you for many years of reminding me of the importance of diversity in science and helping me to understand it. Thank you for many years of reminding me that it is our duty to defend science and liberal education and the inextricable connections between them. Thank you most of all for many years of reminding me of the human side of the ethos of excellence, that all of our colleagues and all of our students are people as well as physicists, and that they need and deserve our understanding, our respect, our community, and our love. Congratulations, Jerry, on 99 years of being a great physicist, a great historian, a great educator, and above all, a great person. With love from Howard and Ann Georgi.
Thank you, dear. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Caroline Jones. I'm an art historian. I'm the partner of Peter Gallison, and most of you know me as Carrie. When I was first searching the archive to make this little slideshow for Jerry, I found a historic picture that intrigued me very much of a 40-something Jerry as a teacher, specifically as part of the National Educational Television Network's Men Who Teach series that was produced in 67-68. And the photograph is covered with historic image watermarks, which I think is appropriate for this historic occasion. The second one I found, though, was more to the point, because I wanted to talk about Jerry and his partnership with Nina in making a generous century for us all. This exciting image is watermarked the Emilio Segre Visual Archives, which are now owned by the American Institute of Physics. And I love this image where Jerry and Nina are in some exotic locale, and Jerry seems to be offering us the fruit from the tree of knowledge, while Nina offers a loving, laughing embrace. This glamorous couple truly brought something to our community. I would date this photograph on the left from sometime in the 50s, and the fashion on the right from sometime in the late 60s or early 70s. And I love the way Jerry's ears are catching up with his face. Nina, of course, seems ever unchanged. This was the house that Jerry and Nina got when they moved from Lexington, where they raised their kids, to here on Francis Ave in Cambridge, Mass., the Jose Luis Sert house. And it couldn't be more perfect for this cosmopolitan couple. And this is when I most remember the entertaining that Jerry and Nina did. Here's Nina in the 80s when I got to know her really well. And she was a sculptor, she was an artist, and she was a supporter of all manner of arts in our community. This was, of course, the courtyard of that magnificent house, which could not have had a better set of curators. They brought it up to all kinds of survival aesthetics for this beautiful modernist gem. And when my new department head at the Department of Architecture at MIT, Young Ho Chang, expressed his strong interest in courtyard houses, I contacted Jerry and Nina, and they were so kind to let Young Ho and me come and visit and see this exemplary courtyard house. This is where the parties would happen. And, you know, it looks uncharacteristically still and quiet. You can see Nina's sculptures up on the windowsill there. And I wanted to show you a couple of the ones that I remember so well. The one on the right, intergalactic rovers made of clay. And then on the left, this little bronze, which very much resembles her mentor and amanuensis, Dmitri Hadzi, whom I worked with in the 80s when I got to know Nina when I was working at the Harvard Art Museums. And we did a little Dmitri Hadzi show. So that was a nice connection. But the place I really remember is their place on the Cape in Wellfleet. This was how you would approach that wonderful house in the woods off Cove Road, and Jerry would be there guiding the cars to minimize damage on the trees. But the real secret was this little cabin off to the side, the writer's hut, the sculptor's studio, where things really happened for both of them over those long, beautiful summers. The parties they would have were on this porch, and of course Jerry would have made smoked fish, and he would serve you a cocktail, and somehow up to 60 or 70 people would fit onto this little area. And you know, we met neighbors who lived next door to us at the Cape, but we would never meet them in our neck of the woods. We would of course meet them at this fantastic cenacle where everybody that was remotely interesting was there, and yet you weren't too afraid that you were the boring ones, because Jerry and Nina made you feel so welcome and so at home. Like the view that you saw off this porch, it seemed simple, but it required constant cultivation, and they were at the heart of this caring community. And I just want to celebrate that partnership and the generosity that it implies. To finish up, here's the man. Happy birthday, Jerry. Long may you wave. Thanks, everybody, for including me in my little memory of Jerry and Nina.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Allan Brandt, and I'm just thrilled and honored to be here today and participate in this celebration of Jerry Holton's 99th birthday. I first met Jerry, what's now nearly 40 years ago, in 1982, when I joined the Department of the History of Science as an assistant professor. I'd come from a PhD in American history, and I really didn't know much about the history of science. And Jerry became one of my teachers, an advisor to me, and a mentor. And it's a great chance for me today to express my incredible admiration and gratitude for all he did in my career, and not just for me, but really for all he did to build our Department of the History of Science, to sustain it and to enhance it over all these years. And the department, in all of its best ways, has Jerry's fingerprints on it. I also want to acknowledge Jerry's deep commitment, not just to our department and to Harvard, which are fantastic, but to the larger world of learning and knowledge, particularly as they have affected the way we understand science in our time. And this has been just so crucially important. And I find myself in these recent years thinking so much of Jerry's deep commitment and activism for scientific literacy and for his thinking and analysis of why science denial is such a powerful force in our society, and the implications that that has. And Jerry taught me, and has taught me over the years, the critical significance of scientific literacy for democracy and more broadly for human health. So these are reflections of Jerry's intellect, of his engagement, of his commitment, that has made our work here at Harvard, but really throughout the world, so important. I'd be remiss not to mention how fantastic both Jerry and Nina have been to me and Shelley and to our family, and their graciousness, their kindness, their enthusiasm for my family has been a model for me of the possibility of collegiality and friendship over now just about 40 years. So, Jerry, happy birthday, and thanks so much for all you have done for our community, for Harvard, and especially for ideas of learning and knowing.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Dear Jerry, happy birthday on your 99th birthday. Thank you so much for living 99 years and for being my friends during the last third of it. You and Nina, my close and dear friends. With your Viennese accent, you always reminded me, of course, of my Viennese mother. But you were parents to me in more ways than that, really nourishing me. Serious talks when I was in trouble and sad, and happy talks when something happy happened and you celebrated it with me. I owe to you almost all the friendships I have on Cape Cod after those 30 years. I met most of my friends either in the big parties on your back deck, where all sorts of amazing people appeared, the small, delicious dinners in your dining room by candlelight, and then just the times we sat alone, times when you used to cook Kaiserschwärm for me in your kitchen. All the many, many good times I spent with you and Nina. I'm so grateful for them. I'm so grateful to you, and I'm so happy that you've been such an important part of my life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear.
I first met
Sweet.
Professor Holton in 1988. He hired me to work on Project Access, a major study on the situation of women in science. Originally, this was for 2 years, but 2 years turned into almost 2 decades. And what enjoyable and productive decades these were, in which we ended up doing 5 books together. It's truly remarkable that Jerry would have initiated a sociological project like Project Access. At that point, he already had a highly distinguished career in physics, the history of physics. So why care about contemporary women in science? Not something he needed to get into. But I think it shows his sense of engagement and responsibility for the social health of the scientific enterprise and his desire to make it better. Jerry was clearly looking beyond narrow scholarly pursuits, and he's always cared about the broad intersection of science and society. We did another book on the topic called Ivory Bridges, as opposed to the academic ivory tower. And I think Ivory Bridges could be a theme of Jerry's work. To me, Jerry has projected this vision of academic culture connected to society, which I admire a lot. It has been a great pleasure to have been working with him on this. Jerry, alles Gute zum 99. Und die besten Wünsche für die Dreistelligkeit.
Hello,
Dankeschön.
this is Loren Graham. I knew Jerry Holton through his works long before I knew him well personally. When I was teaching the history of science at Columbia University, I used to assign every year his article entitled Mock Einstein and the Search for Reality. It was written over 50 years ago, but it's a wonderful article and I still recommend it. Then Jerry played a very important role in bringing me to Cambridge. MIT had established a new program in STS, and MIT wanted me to come to Cambridge, and Jerry I guess you could say, courted me and helped encourage me to do that. I did it, and I'm very pleased that I did do it because my relationship with MIT and Harvard has been very good. Last of all, I'd like to mention that one of my recent pleasures with Jerry was when he and his wife, Nina, sang German songs just a couple of years ago at a party which I attended. It was very nice, and I still remember it with great pleasure. Thank you.
Gerald Holton is a physicist. He received his PhD at Harvard, working with the Nobel Prize winner, P.W. Bridgman. But Holton also became much more than the physicist. Holton became a practitioner of border crossing, reaching across the specialist's boundaries, particularly into the history and philosophy of science, as well as the physicist's realm itself. Holton is the author of a number of critical books, which in a sense reflect who he was as a human being and as a scholar. Scientific Imagination of 1978, in which Holton opened up the world of science to the non-scientists, to the young scientists. And he went on for a number of other adventures. His important book on Einstein in 1995 made the great physicist Albert Einstein approachable to the non-scientist, to the young scientist, to the student exploring what science is and what science could become. Science was a world that Holton wanted to share with people who hadn't been through the laboratory the way he had. And he became particularly interested in and ultimately directly involved with the teaching and training in the history of science at Harvard, becoming a member of the Department of the History of Science in the years after it was established, and as he became more deeply involved with young students interested in the history of physics and in the history of science more generally. He wanted also to, how would I say, open up the world. Physics and the Human Adventure, one of his books written after 2000, was one in which he indeed wanted to take students and others into the human adventure of science itself, his own field, especially physics. Not only was he able to make achievements in his field, but he gained recognition and was awarded the George Sarton Medal of the History of Science Society as a clear indication that we historians of science recognized him and brought him into our fold. Jerry, we are glad to honor you and to honor your work, and particularly to wish you a very happy 99th birthday.
Jerry, I'm sitting next to Everett here, and I'm feeling privileged to have a chance to say a few words myself to you on your birthday. I know I haven't heard the comments other people have made because they've been recorded, and we'll hear them when we're all together on the Zoom. But I presume that they mostly dealt with your scholarship and your friendships and your colleagueship. And I want to add something to that that is an important element for me. That is to say that you are among the most courtly men I know, and I've always loved you for that. So I'm wishing you a very, very happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jerry, so here you have the word of people from all over the world in enormous appreciation for all you've brought to us and to the world beyond us. Could you, if you would like, we'd love to hear a few words from you if you'd like to speak.
I'd love to. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you see me? That's less
Yes,
fortunate.
we can.
Yes. All right. All right. You know, at my stage of life, good things don't usually happen. And this is an enormous kind gathering, wonderfully making an exception. And that during this time, you know, the thing that I keep thinking about is how blessed I have been in so many different ways. You know, to escape from the Nazi Holocaust as a youngster, as one of the 7% of the children that, like me, that survived, and coming to America at the time of FDR and falling in love with America, which I still have very much, although it is so beaten down right and left. Well, I have been blessed to belong to two departments, two spectacular departments, the physics department, the history of science department at Harvard. The list of enormous scholars in them is unbeatable. You could not find that kind of quality if you looked right and left. You could not find it easily. It's astonishing. And my PhD work also started by an accident, namely, I was a graduate student. I didn't know what to do next and was being offered to be a student of several people. But I happened to find in the Harvard Physics Department library a little booklet, The Logic of Physics, 1927 period, by P.W. Bridgman. And here then was a book by a person who was a great physicist and a philosopher of science. And that combination attracted me enormously. And he was kind enough to let me be one of his students. And I can't begin to give you the list of all the wonderful people that I have so admired in both of those. But it is, as I say, unbeatable. And they have given me the chance to work on anything I want. It's an amazing idea. You remember perhaps the story of Sigmund Freud being asked, what makes a good life? And he said just two things, work and love. I have been lucky in both of these accounts. To this day, I feel happy when I can sit down and work with a piece of paper and a pencil in the old style and start to work on a new idea. Nothing like it. I have been very happy to work on my various books. But as to love, and of course in my physics department for 30 years as an experimentalist, and as to love, I was extremely happy to have a wonderful woman standing next to me while as a student at Harvard in a little group of refugees, we all were singing Schubert songs. And when I saw her, I had never seen before, I knew immediately, this is it. And half a year later, we were married. That was Nina. And it has been a love affair ever since. In this, I feel a little bit like Niels Bohr, who said, because he was married to Margaret and very happily married, he said, I'm really a mathematical puzzle because I'm one half of two. And I very much feel split up among all of you, with each of you getting a little bit of me, and then it'll grow inside you, perhaps. But I'm so grateful to your wonderful talks, which have introduced me to ideas I was at the verge of forgetting. And so I won't keep you any longer. From your work and your love, and with grateful love to all of you, thank you. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you, Jerry. And could we all 142 of us, raise a virtual glass over this virtual medium to Jerry Holton on the occasion of his 99th birthday and for all the years past and those still to come. So here's to you, Jerry. Here's to you.
Happy birthday, Jerry.
Here, here. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Also from Louise.
Happy birthday, Jerry.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Birthday.
There we go. Happy birthday, Jerry.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Jerry.
Happy birthday,
Jerry. Happy birthday.
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 Good.
Happy birthday.
Happy for sure.
Oh,
Thank you, dear.
Hirschbach.
Great time.
Goodbye, everybody. And Jerry, have a wonderful rest of this day celebrating your birthday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
23 days.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, and many more.
Bye, everyone.
Okay. That was sweet.
That was sweet.
Happy birthday, Jerry.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Amazing.
Happy birthday.
It's incredible. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, dear. Oh, good. Hello? Yes, Peter. It's still on, you know. It was wonderful of you to do that. Amazing. Absolutely astonishing. I do. Full of gratitude. Yes, I see. Yes, it must be coming back to normal to some way. Yes. Thank you so